Jada is back at it, here to give everyone another Game of Thrones Season 8 episode review video. Before I get into that, though, pretty important, especially for this episode. If you're not caught up to the point where I am and rewatching or watching Game of Thrones, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative right now and pay attention to the episode's title, which, of course, I'll mention as well as put in the description for you. If that has to be the case and you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't, and I mean you don't, watch this video any further to avoid any major spoilers. This will be Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode number 3. Title of this episode is called The Long Night. This will be my review, reaction, recap after just finishing watching the episode. And I'll let you know ahead of time, this is my favorite episode of Game of Thrones. And not only is it my favorite episode of Game of Thrones, it's my favorite episode of any television series. I love this episode that much. So the Army of the Dead is just about at Winterfell. In fact, they're about to knock on the door. So we see random characters start to prepare for what's to come. Jon and Daenerys leave with Drogon and Rhaegal to await the Night King. You have Theon. He takes the Ironborn to escort Bran to the Godswood. And Tyrion takes shelter in the crypts with the other non-fighters. Although Tyrion, he thinks he can fight because of what happened at Blackwater. But this is a completely different situation. So he's down there with like Varys, Gilly, and Melisandre. And those are the three others that are coming to my mind of the weaker characters. Just from what I can remember. And then you have all of our combatants kind of lined up. You have like the Dothraki, the Unsullied, you have Jaime, Brienne, Ed, you have Grey Worm, you have Jorah, who's with the Dothraki, you have Ghost, who's out there ready to go. And then from where we think the Whites are, you see somebody come in on a horse. And then as we see who it is, it's actually Melisandre. Melisandre is back, and she asked Jorah, I believe she asked Jorah, do you speak their tongue, or something to do with do you speak their language? And then she tells Jorah, have them pull their swords out. And then she says something and makes all the Dothraki swords and weapons light on fire. Now, you probably already know this, but it's a very dark episode in the fact that it's dark, but it's a very dark episode in the fact that you can't really see very good of what's happening. So that lights the episode out. And then they zoom back and show like a big picture of everything. And then the Dothraki, Jorah, and Ghost go charging to where we know the Whites are. We just haven't been able to see them yet. And we see this. They get there. Then you start hearing the Whites make the noises like, you know. And then one by one, you see those lights on those flaming swords or weapons start to go out, until we don't see any of those lights left at all. And then there's some hesitation, and then people start coming back. Jorah comes back. We don't see Ghost, and there's a few Dothraki that come back. Like, they don't want any part of what they just happened. And then the Whites come charging in. It's like a massacre right away. So Daenerys, witnessing this, leaves to burn the Whites with Drogon. But the living find themselves very much outnumbered. So Arya, seeing the chaos, she actually orders Sansa to hide in the crypts with Tyrion, Varys, Melisandre, and Gilly, just because she's not a fighter. And then she gives her a weapon and just says, hey, because Sansa, she doesn't fight. She doesn't, she's like Cersei. And she says, stick him with the pointy end, which is obviously a callback. And then we see a part where Sam is getting outnumbered. There's a White on top of him, and he's about to get massacred, and all of a sudden somebody kills that White, and it's Ed. Ed saves Sam. Sam stands up, and before they can embrace, Ed is killed from behind by a White. And instead of confronting this White, Sam does a smart thing, in my opinion. He turns around and runs the opposite direction. A little useless, but, I mean, he really can't do anything. He killed at least one White Walker before, but this is a crazy time. So that's that with that. And then you have Jon and Daenerys unsuccessfully attempt to engage the Night King, just because the Night King is so he's on a dragon up there. And this is a little bit later on the episode, but it's hard to, especially with the dragons in cold weather, they don't do very well, except the ice dragon, obviously. But all of our characters are kind of retreated back to Winterfell and like inside Winterfell, and they have like the trench around Winterfell. And what they do is they have Melisandre come back out, and she lights. It's delayed at the last second. Everything lights up, and that gives Daenerys and Jon the opportunity to see what the fuck is going on because they weren't able to see. So that lights Winterfell up, so they know where to go. So that's that. So eventually, what happens? That works for a little while. But then the whites start to use their bodies to essentially put a bridge, sacrifice themselves so other whites can get through. And then it's back to more chaos. Now, we go to the Godswood, and Theon is about to start fighting whites with the Ironborn that are approaching Bran. And then all of a sudden, Bran tells Theon that he's going to go now. I think Brienne wanted to get a sneak peek of Avengers Endgame at that point in time because both the episode and the movie came out the same week. No, that's not obviously what happened, but Brienne was kind of useless right there. You stay here and guard me. I'm going to go now. So it was just a weird, like, where are you going? Wait, what's going on here? And we didn't really find out what was going on. I mean, I don't know. So then we have the whites. They're in Winterfell. They're climbing up the walls, and we're seeing our characters randomly kill whites as they're trying to climb up the walls. Jaime, Brienne, Sam, Gendry, Grey Worm. No, Grey Worm's still on the ground. I don't remember. It's hard to keep track of everybody. But then there's a part where all of a sudden a white gets its head cut off, and it's Arya, and she's using that new weapon that Gendry had previously made for her. And she's just balling out with this weapon, like killing whites left and right. And then there's even a scene where she's killing whites, and Davos sees her and kind of looks at her like, Jesus Christ, who is this young girl who's just kicking ass and just massacring these whites? So that was an awesome moment. And then what happens now is a giant white breaks through the castle walls at Winterfell. And like Lady Lyanna Mormont is there, and like the giant swats Lady Mormont out of the way. And eventually we go back to this as this giant's just causing chaos with his swiping things and swatting things out of the way. And Lady Mormont is a little injured, or Lyanna Mormont, whatever called, Lady Mormont, Lyanna Mormont, seems a little injured and like has her weapon, and she's mad. And she starts breathing heavy, and then she goes, and starts charging the giant. And this giant white, or this white giant, whatever you want to call it, picks her up and starts to crush her. Before she dies, though, she stabs the giant in the eye with some dragon glass, and the giant falls and starts to implode. And the shortest person there, Lyanna Mormont, has killed a giant, sacrificing herself, but she killed the giant. That was an awesome moment in the episode. So we've already lost Lyanna Mormont, we've lost Ed, more to come, and more dead start to pour into Winterfell now that they can get even easier. And then there's this scene where you see Arya like evade one of the whites, a few of the whites. It's kind of a prolonged scene. It's kind of annoying. It was kind of thrown in there, and I know why, obviously, and somehow, some way, I didn't catch why this was the case. I guess I was not paying attention good enough, but eventually she's like sneaking around and hides and throws things to get their attention where they hear the noise over there, and she walks that way. But that's that. And then you have a part where she's being chased through like the tunnels of Winterfell, and they tackle her through one of the doors, and Beric Dondarrion sees this, and this white's about to get Arya, and he throws his sword at her. And I should mention, before all this happens, there's a scene after Arya was kicking ass that Beric's looking at the Hound, and the Hound, there's fire all over, so he's just freaking out. And the Beric's like, what the fuck are you doing, Clegane? Pull your head out of your ass. And, he's sad, and you tell her that, and Arya's kind of in trouble, but still kicking ass. And somehow, somebody that lights a fire under the Hound to, like, start doing stuff. Because at this point, he was the most pointless character of the episode. Well, him and Sam, I guess. So, Beric saves Arya with the flaming sword. And then the Hound comes over, picks Arya up, and runs away. And then Beric gets bit and stabbed. And then he keeps getting bit and stabbed, or whatever the hell. It's kind of hard to tell what exactly was happening. But he's like putting his arms out, like blocking them from coming towards the Hound and Arya. And Beric, this is about 3 or 4 times he did this, and he was getting fucked up. And then Arya and the Hound end up in this, I don't know which room in Winterfell it was, but it's room. And Beric somehow, someway gets in there with them. But like right when he gets in the room, he falls over and he's just completely out of it. And then Arya looks at him in the eyes, and before he can say a word, he's dead. And then Melisandre is in this room, and she's like, he served a purpose to save you. And then Arya's like, I know you. And she's like, you said I would shut many eyes forever. And then Melisandre emphasizes the brown eyes, green eyes, and blue eyes line. And then, like, the whites are starting to come to the door. And the Hound, Arya, and Melisandre stand and look at the door. And then she's like, what do we say to the god of death? And then they use the Game of Thrones tagline. Or, like, instead of Avengers Assemble, it's not today. And then Arya goes running off. And I should have figured out what was going on with this. I didn't catch it. I didn't see what was going to happen at the end of the episode coming. I really didn't. I'm surprised because I see everything. Horror movies and that. But this, I did not. So you have Jon and Daenerys and the Night King. They're all dismounted. Well, the Night King specifically is actually dismounted from his dragon, as well as Jon. And eventually, Jon's on the ground, the Night King's on the ground, Daenerys is still on Drogon in the air, and the Night King's just standing there. So, of course, Daenerys does the Jakaris, and Drogon just starts flaming the Night King. And they look at that for about 20 seconds, and all of a sudden you start to see the Night King form in the fire, and he's fine. It didn't hurt him at all. And then he kind of smirks at Daenerys like... So that was interesting. So after this happens, Jon attempts to charge the Night King, but is forced to flee when the Night King reanimates the dead. He does the whole... And then everybody starts standing up. Ed, Lyanna Mormont, all these random characters and Dad are getting back up, which is not what we want to see, but Jon didn't get close enough. He was way far away when he started charging him, so that's not good. And then eventually Daenerys is off Drogon. Well, she lights all the whites that are close to the Night King on fire to kind of save Jon. That's how Jon gets away. And then because she spent so much time doing that, she was too low to the ground. White started climbing on Drogon to the point where he couldn't fly that easily anymore. And eventually Daenerys gets knocked off of Drogon. She's on the ground, and these whites are falling off of Drogon, and one of them kind of looks at Daenerys, and they start to go after Daenerys. And then all of a sudden, one of them gets their head cut off, and it's Jorah. He's going to be her bodyguard to the end. So that's an awesome moment. And I just had to say, there's moments in this episode where Jorah and Daenerys are back to back, and Jorah's just getting the shit kicked out of him and kicking the shit out of some whites, stabbing him. And he gets stabbed, he gets sliced with swords, he goes on the ground, and then he stands back up. Jorah just won't stay down. It's like Rocky Balboa. He gets knocked out and just keeps getting back up. And so Daenerys and Jorah, they fight alongside each other, fighting the whites. And then Jon makes for the Godswood, but he keeps getting stopped by the, Viserion, the Ice Dragon Viserion. And in the Godswood, Theon, he defends Bran to the end. He's the last man there. Then Bran finally comes back to where, he's back from watching Avengers Endgame. And he says, "You're a good man." Or Theon, "You're a good man. Thank you." And at this point, you have all the White Walkers and the Night King, right there, watching. And then Theon kind of gives Bran an acknowledgement, and then Theon has his spear, and he just charges the Whites and the Night King. And then the Night King easily stops him and breaks his spear and stabs him with his own spear. And then the Night King approaches Bran, and the music is starting to get really intense and like really fitting in with what's happening in the episode. And the night, it's like honestly, this was like the staring match from hell, because they're just kind of staring at each other. And this is, while this is happening, Jorah's getting fucked up but keeps standing back up. Jon is trying to get away from Viserion, but he just can't get past Viserion. And the Night King is like slowly going for his sword, like, and then they like go to a shot of one of the White Walkers where his hair kind of moves, and as the Night King has his sword, all of a sudden Arya arrives and like leaps to the Night King, but he turns around real quick and grabs her, and I'm sure and then like she drops the dagger that she had from her one hand to the other hand, catches it, and does the same thing that she did to Brienne, and stabs the Night King. The Night King, done. All the White Walkers, done. Viserion the Ice Dragon, done. All the Whites, done. Fucking Arya Stark. And I should have saw it coming, because they gave you plenty, and I mean plenty of hints that this was going to happen, but somehow, some way, I just didn't catch it. I was surprised as shit. I know some of you don't like this. You wanted Jon Snow to kill the Night King. I think this was much more awesome, and I will stand by that fact. So finally, all the Whites are dead. All the White Walkers are dead. The Night King is no more. And then we see that Jorah finally won't get back up, and he's done. So he fought to the end. No matter what was happening, he kept getting back up until the threat was gone. Jorah Mormont, an awesome character on Game of Thrones, and he's done. Pretty sad moment. And then as dawn arises, you see Melisandre come out along with the Hound. And of course, Davos is right there to see her, and she leaves Winterfell. And then rather than follow through on his promise to execute her, he realizes that Melisandre's life purpose was served, and she removes the magical necklace thing, throws it on the ground, or not throws it, just kind of tosses it aside, and then she keeps walking, and then she ages, you can see, and then she just kind of collapses into the ground, well, into the dusk, whatever you want to call it. And that is how this crazy, amazing episode ends. 10 out of 10? No, actually, it's a 20 out of 10. Like I said, this is the most phenomenal episode of a television series I've ever seen. I know some people don't like it because they wanted Jon Snow to kill the Night King. And yes, I know it seemed kind of like odd that this was episode 3 when you thought this would be like the finale of Game of Thrones, but it is what it is. As far as my character of the episode, well, there's got to be some special shout-outs. First of all, Samwell Tarly was useless in this episode. Just want to point that out. My shout-out to him is he were useless. Lyanna Mormont, complete beast for what she did in this episode. Beric Dondarrion, he was fucking awesome. As a character that was kind of like here and there, didn't really, get brought back to life with Thoros. He was fucking amazing in this particular episode. Loved Beric in this episode. And then, upon this latest rewatch, there's 3 characters on Game of Thrones that, like, all of a sudden, who I didn't like before, that I really like now. Brienne, Sansa, and Theon fucking Greyjoy. Theon was fucking awesome. I take back all the mean things I said about Theon, because what he did to Roderick in Season 2 of Game of Thrones, I hated him for. And I finally am over that. I saw the whole redemption arc now. Ramsay cutting his dick off. I get it. And like this episode, like Theon fully redeemed himself. And Theon has got to be... I'm going to redo my top 20 favorite characters on Game of Thrones. He's got to be in the top 20 at this point, because I really liked it. I was actually sad to see Theon go. Obviously, Jorah. We've already talked about how awesome Jorah was. All those characters did a lot. And Melisandre. Who would have thought that Melisandre was the reason that they won? I think she helped out big time in this. But the character of the episode, it's not Jon, it's not Daenerys. Unfortunately, it's not Jorah, Theon, Lyanna Mormont. It is going to be Arya Stark. Fucking awesome. And Bran, he was also pointless in this episode too. I'm gonna go now. Fucking watching Avengers Endgame while there's a battle going on. So, you've heard me ramble a lot. It's your turn. And I actually, before I do that, I want to say that there's some YouTube channels that I watch for Game of Thrones reactions, and I continuously watch these Game of Thrones reactions, even though I've probably seen at least all of them 20 times. And I want to, especially for this particular episode, the Normies, their Game of Thrones episode, Season 8, Episode 3 episode, great reaction. Burlington Bar, those are some fucking awesome episodes. Or, I'm sorry, awesome reactions. Type Burlington Bar, GOT, the drop. That's the bar going, their reaction to Arya killing the Night King. Fucking awesome experience. Seska Says, she has awesome reactions on YouTube. Blind Wave, who some reactions I think they're a little lame on, but their Game of Thrones episode reactions are pretty good. And then as far as like a review of Game of Thrones, Trev's Chan 2, one of my favorite YouTubers, at least for this episode, it was really good. Now, the finale and the episode before the finale, he's not very happy with. But this episode, he agrees. So at least at the time, he thought this was the most amazing episode of any television series he's ever seen. So, yeah, I've talked a lot. I'm sorry. It's your turn now. So if you're a fan of Game of Thrones and you like this series, and I think it's an epic series, no matter what happens at the end, it's an awesome series. Make sure you smash that like button or smash that thumbs up button, whatever you want to call it. If you think this is an awesome review and you want to share it across all your social media platforms, please do so. That would definitely help me out. Sound off in the comment section about your thoughts on the episode. What would you score it? I gave it a 10 out of 10 or 100 out of 10. 20 out of 10, I think is what I said officially. Who would be your character of the episode? What was your favorite moment of the episode? How mad are you that Arya was the one that ended up killing the Night King and not Jon Snow? And last but certainly not least, obviously the goal is to grow the channel. Don't forget to hit that sub button, subscribe to the channel, join the team, show your damn support, and be a part of something special. And JDev will return.